As we continue to run out of 2025, there are still a few things that haven't nailed down a specific release date that are supposedly coming out this year, including the Xbox handheld. But it may finally be getting a release date relatively soon. It's Sunday, so let's get sensational. I'm Mike, and I'm back to talk about the gaming news. And speaking of gaming, Xbox is looking to have people game on their handheld, hopefully by the end of the year, but they've been pretty vague about the release date for their handheld so far. So the ROG Xbox Ally was officially revealed in June with a generic release date of holiday 2025, putting them in a head-to-head race with Metroid Prime 4 to see which one gets a release date first. Well, the Xbox may be pulling ahead in the race according to these recent rumors. So this was originally reported by Bill Kuhn via the site Layoffs. It's being reported that the European version of the Xbox handheld will be releasing on October 16th of this year, with pre-orders starting on August 20th. Now this only pertains to the European version of the handheld, so we still don't know if this will be the worldwide release date. But if this ends up being true, I'm sure the US release date will probably be around the same time. We can also assume that if pre-orders start on August 20th, then we'll get the official pricing then, which from the previous rumors is around $700 for the Xbox Ally and around $1,050 for the Ally X. But that was again converted from euros, so the pricing may still be different in the US. But the current Ally X is $1,000, so it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility. Now, I mentioned this when I covered the pricing rumors that if they land around those prices, it's really going to be a tough sell when you have something like the Steam Deck or even the current ROG Ally Non-X, which can be found sometimes around $400 or $500. But yeah, if these rumors are actually true, then we should find out in about a week and a half. But one thing that's not a rumor is the state of the gaming industry, as we have another studio that has announced layoffs, and this time it's Bithell Games. So Bithell Games was founded in 2012 and was initially known for the game Thomas Was Alone. They also released John Wick Hex and most recently Tron Catalyst. Well, the studio's founder, Mike Bithell, announced that they will be laying off 11 people from their staff. He states that this is due to failure to secure a new larger scale project. He also mentions the jobs that are being cut are the majority of their full-time staff, which makes sense because they're a smaller studio, so without the funding or a licensed project, they don't have the funding to keep all those people on staff. He did mention they're offering a severance package for the affected employees. It's rough right now, especially for smaller independent studios that rely on getting projects or funding from other companies, because a lot of the bigger companies are afraid to take risks with funding games right now. And even some larger studios that are a part of bigger companies have been affected, like Bungie, for example. So Sony bought Bungie back in 2022 with the intentions of them operating as an independent studio, but over the last few years, that's been changing. They'd previously been hit with layoffs, and Sony had already started taking some of their people and moving them to other PlayStation studios. And now it looks like they're close to being officially folded into PlayStation studios and no longer being independent. So during Sony's recent quarterly earnings call, Lin Tao, Sony's CEO and CFO, commented on the state of Bungie within PlayStation, and he mentioned that they initially bought Bungie in to be an independent studio, but now that they've restructured things, that they're going to have less independence and continue to integrate into PlayStation Studios with a long-term plan to fully integrate them into PlayStation Studios. So yeah, it looks like Bungie is basically on its way to becoming a full PlayStation Studio, which means that if things don't work out, there's probably not a chance of them going fully independent again like they did under Microsoft's ownership. But even though Bungie is losing their independence, another gaming publication has gained theirs. So if you're not familiar with Digital Foundry, they do technical deep dives on gaming hardware and software, and it's generally one of the best places if you want a deep dive on performance and visuals of games. So they were a part of Gamer Network, which was acquired by IGN last year, but now they've gone fully independent. So the founders of Digital Foundry and Eurogamer got together and bought out 50% of the company's shares from IGN to go fully independent. They also announced that they started a Patreon so their fans can directly support them if they choose to. And of course, this will give them more journalistic freedom since they're not under a bigger company anymore. I mean, personally, I had no idea that they were even owned by IGN. I mainly watched their content on YouTube, so it makes a lot of sense for them to go independent. Either way, I hope that they have continued success as an independent company. But you know, it wasn't successful, at least for Nintendo. The recent survey they did about their game keycards, and that's what we're talking about today in our final story. So there's been some controversy around the way Nintendo is handling game cards on the Switch 2, specifically the game key cards that don't actually have a game on it. So this generation, Nintendo decided to give publishers an option to use a key card which doesn't contain the game, but instead downloads the game, and you have to have the card inserted to play it. Now, of course, this means that it's basically a digital game at that point, but the only advantage is since it's a physical card required to play it, you can give it to somebody, let them borrow it, or resell it. Well, Nintendo sent out a survey to get feedback on how people are feeling about this new system, and it doesn't seem like it went that well. So Nintendo sent out a survey to some Switch 2 users to get their opinion on purchasing games and how they feel about the new keycard system. They were asking questions like if players prefer to purchase digital or physical games and why, and how often they resold games if they purchase physical games, and of course how they felt about the keycard system and if they would buy those games. Now, people are assuming that the survey didn't go well for Nintendo because they quickly pulled it down, so that could mean that they got a lot of feedback and it was negative, which I imagine is probably what happened. Now, the only thing that I'm really confused about with this whole thing is why people are mad about this now, when Sony and Microsoft have basically been doing the same thing for over 10 years at this point. And yes, I get that the discs still have something on them, but most of the time it's not a full game, and it at least requires a day one patch to be playable in most cases. Also, the game runs off the SSDs or the hard drives back in last gen consoles, so after it's installed, you're just inserting the disc as a digital key, which is basically the same thing that Nintendo is doing now. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not defending this at all and saying that it doesn't suck. What I'm saying is, physical games across the board on all the consoles suck. Like, this isn't uniquely a Nintendo thing. This is a console manufacturers trying to get away from physical games thing and making the experience worse. Now, I get that this is a new thing for Nintendo because they didn't really do this as much on their last gen system. There were some games on the Switch 1 that you had to download part of the game or something like that when you put the card in because it couldn't fit on the card, but they didn't really have a situation where there was like nothing on the card. So I kind of get that, and in some ways having nothing on the card is still worse than the whole Xbox or PS5 situation, but it's not that much worse. Like, the Xbox and PS5 aren't that much better. But again, in my opinion, it does suck, but it sucks across the board with all three consoles right now. But let me know how you feel in the comments about this keycard system from Nintendo or the state of physical games on consoles in general. Again, let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification button thing to be notified when I drop a video or a live stream. And always do at least 2 things at the same time.